Welcome to BelDOCS Online Film Festival, Àlex.
Thank you very much. Our pleasure that you guys selected the film and it can be watched in, Serbian audiences. It's very nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have to say, it is really great honor for me to be one of your dialogists in this beautiful conversation. And my first question for today is, as a filmmaker, you are one of the most talented, admired, and glorified documentary filmmaker of contemporary cinema. But it is so strange for me, your film career is parallel as editor, director of photography, writer, producer. Why so many aspects in process of movie making?
Yeah, I guess that for me, it's more or less all the same. Everything is very interconnected. It's, I don't know, if you think about a body has a lot of parts, and we have eyes and we have hands and we have a mouth, and for me, filmmaking, it's pretty similar. So that's something that I learned when I was studying from one of the professors. He was like, if you want to be a director and tell your own stories, you better be in every part of the production to learn every aspect, so then you can communicate better with, when you are supposed to be in charge of the production. And that's a little bit what I did. I started, interning and being, in a lot of productions, being, as assistant producer, then in a lot of short films, trying to experiment with lights, to be cinematographer. Also, editing was my main source of income. So I was learning a lot about editing. And it's interesting because in editing, given that it's in the almost the last process of filmmaking before the screening, you can see a lot of the mistakes. You can learn a lot of the mistakes that happened before. It's like an accumulative project. What it doesn't go well in the pre-production, you're going to suffer it in the production. What it doesn't go well in the production, you're going to suffer it in the post-production, right? So okay. I guess everything got interconnected. And then nowadays, I like to make my own projects, but the most of the income, I do it editing. So that's a little bit the story of why, all these different...
Okay. You are a very, very prolific film author. For us here, it is so strange because it's very, very difficult to collect money for that. Is it the same situation in your case?
It's the same situation. And most of the projects are very low budget projects, at least the ones that I direct. It's different for the ones I work as an editor or I work as a cinematographer. Some of them had, different budgets, but the ones I direct, they are, the most of them, very, very low budget. But still, if you really want to do something, of course the budget helps, but it shouldn't be, like something that stops you to do it. And that's also why, sometimes I rather do it myself, because then I don't have to pay different things. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the sound. And of course, it gets hit the result, because sometimes it's not as good as having a good cinematographer or a sound person that is very good. But at least the project gets done, That's a little bit the idea.
For how long you did prepare the Fourth Kingdom?
The Fourth Kingdom, the preparation was not long. I do remember, though, that when I first got to New York, one of the first exercise I did here, because I was surprised, everybody's looking up, the skyscrapers, all these tall buildings, and some, even you have pain in your neck after, and you are so overwhelmed by the city, especially if you come from my country where the buildings are, not very tall, like maybe three floors or things like that. But then you look down and you see these bags, mountains of garbage, right? And then, as is a question that arises, like, what do they do with that? And then you see this iconic image of person, taking cans and bottles. So that's the first thing I did. I recorded like a 3 minutes I put together a 3-minute piece, and I called it also The Fourth Kingdom, but 10 years ago. But that project, you know, I didn't do anything else. And then in 2015, my friend came from Spain, and we were talking about a project to do. And we kind of brought it back. And then we stayed filming for almost 2 years on and off. And stayed more time in the place than me because he had more free time as well. And then we edited for more or less a year, but the idea was also, we made also a short film version of this film, you know? So
with the same title.
With the same title, yeah. And the idea was, let's, you know, we need a little bit of money for the post-production, at least to try to achieve a good sound design, you know, and at least that was something, because the color correction we can manage, making the DCP, but at least a good sound design. We needed some funds for that. And then we had this idea, let's make a short film, submit it to film festivals. It will create a little bit of awareness, and maybe that can bring some money to finish the feature, you know, in a good place. So that was a little bit the process.
The Fourth Kingdom was an enormous success. You were participants of many famous film festivals in Shanghai, Krakow, Kerala, I don't know, Hong Kong. To be honest, did you expect such a success?
No, we didn't. And you never make the film thinking about, you know, how it's gonna work. You make it because you have, you know, your own reasons, or, you know, your own questions in order to at least to answer to yourself those questions, to find an explanation. But that you cannot control. That's the reality. So I remember when I was younger, I was like, oh, I wish this film gets into Sundance. But you, at some point, you start worrying. You have to do it because you love the project, and you take a lot of, you know, in a personal level, it's priceless, and the rest you cannot control. And it's. I mean, it's done well. It's not done amazing. I mean, we always have this expectation. You would be having better, you know, to premiere in Sundance or in Berlinale, or, you know, in A+ Film Festival. But still, in Spain, it was in the 3 most important film festivals, Malaga, San Sebastián, and Documenta Madrid. And internationally has done okay, and we are happy. You know, it helps this kind of success. I mean, if we can call it success helps to move forward with new projects. That's all.
What about reaction in New York and United States and reviews about your movie?
It's been okay. We had a very good response, especially in, I guess, in 3 film festivals. In Atlanta Film Festival, the response was very good, and you know, the theater was full, and the Q&A was very interesting. In Big Sky Documentary Film Festival also was very good, and also at Doc NYC, the response was amazing because the community of the Canners could come to the screening. And then it was also the AMC Theater at 34th Street, which is, you know, a huge space, and then the audience was very interested, not only to know about the film, but also to know about them, you know. And after here, you know, there was a review in the Hollywood Reporter, and, you know, it was very interesting. It was good.
This place in your movie is Williamsburg, near New York. Tell us, please, something about this small community. It is 5 or 6 people, and it was difficult to work with them or not?
At the beginning, I guess it was a little bit more difficult because they didn't know us and they didn't know our intentions at all. But I have to say that Adan is the most charming, my co-director, the most charming person that you can find, always with a smile, you know, and that made things way easier. And they understood, and we were respectful. There were a lot of Canners that were saying, hey, I don't want to be filmed. I don't know what's your idea, but please don't even point the camera at me. And we were very respectful with that. And we didn't know while we were filming the story yet. We had some concepts in mind that we were trying to tackle, and we put some aesthetic restrictions in order to kind of give...
Which kind of restrictions, please?
We were saying that given that we didn't have a character yet. At least we would have to try at the beginning to be very consistent in the way we were filming. And for instance, we were saying, okay, what if, I don't know, when I moved here, one of my professors, and I established a very good relationship with her, she was also my mentor, was Chantal Ackerman. And Chantal never moved the camera, you know, or very little. So, and she was telling me about why she did it, and I kind of embraced that concept. And we were doing a little bit the same. We were like, okay, we're going to find, you know, like angles that are, you know, perpendiculars, and not move the camera, and at least to give a consistency while we were filming, that it will be aesthetically, that will probably affect the content as well. So we put those restrictions, and little by little we found our characters, the ones that open up more, like Renee or Anna or Walter, you know, but that took a while. And in the meantime, we were kind of filming with these restrictions, you know, like aesthetically, not intervene, not answer, you know, like following a little bit the Verite style. Don't make them questions, you know, whatever happens. So all these restrictions.
Okay. I could be wrong, but I think Mexican guy, Rene, is your favorite character, right?
It's the one that I mean, he's a sweetheart. He's very nice. And it's the one that opened up the most to us. You know, also is the one that, you know, opens the door as sure we can, and it's the one who closes the door as sure we can. And we were staying there till late. So when everybody had left, he would be staying there, you know, and sometimes we were like, oh, can we do pickups of this, pickups of that, or we want to shoot, and he would be there, you know, like with us, just waiting. So I guess the connection little by little increased, and he opened up. He was, at some point, he didn't even notice that the camera was there. So that's why he became a little bit the main character, because, yeah.
What about the rest of the characters, Anna and some other people?
I mean, for instance, I guess that the most difficult to get his confidence was Walter, but it's understandable. I mean, some of them had a very hard life, and they are also in a sensitive situation, you know. It's not a joke. The ICE, I mean, in New York doesn't happen that often, but, you know, the ICE come and get people arrested, and if the paperwork is not, you know, in a good shape, they are sent back to their countries, you know. And so I understand the reservations, and we were respectful for that. But all of them had a lot to offer, and it's not the experience that we've lived. I mean, the movie is just the tip of the iceberg, you know. It's all of these things that we learn about them, that we live with them, that, you know, that those are something that will remain forever with us. And now we have a relationship with them, you know, especially with Renee. Every now and then, call, you doing? They were sick due to COVID some months ago, so we also tried to help a little bit. Yeah, you establish a relationship with them, and now they are friends.
Did they know each other for a long time, or before shooting?
Some of them they did. In 2010, Ana, who is the Spanish missionaire, moved to New York and lived sometimes in the street helping them, and she saw what was the problem with the canners. I mean, one of the problems, of course, some of them have problems with alcoholism, with drugs, and she was trying to help them to rehabilitate, to become better, you know, with themselves. So that's what she was trying to do. And then she thought that maybe creating a community, giving them this sense of community, with it's a little bit what Charts does, you know, would help them. But it was very difficult. Her idea was like, it's going to be very difficult to bring them to a community, you know, because they have to work, they have to pick up cans. So she had this amazing idea. She was like, what if the core of the community, it's a redemption center where they come to bring the cans? Because at the end, they have to make these long lines in the supermarkets to leave the cans, and they can only leave an amount of cans. After they leave this amount, they have to go to another supermarket, and they spend a lot of time going to supermarket, and this time they are not working, they are just waiting, you know. And if I create this center, they could leave as many cans as they want, and also they would start relating to each other, and I can introduce artistic activities, religious activities if I want, and I can create this community that is going to be very helpful for them. And that her idea was in 2010, and I think around 2012 the center was running. So they've known each other maybe when we start shooting maybe 4 or 5 years.
Did they change something in their lives after your movie?
I think not after. I think
are they in some better position now or not?
Some of them are in a better position. Some of them, unfortunately, for instance, Eugene, he's not doing very well. He has a problem, you know, with addiction of drugs. So it's a very difficult situation. But some of them did, but I don't think because of the movie, to be honest. I think it's because of the center and because of Anna and this sense of community and family, you know. When you are far from your roots, I think it's important to have a place where, you know, where you can hold on and feel comfortable. And that's why I think some of them, especially the step of not being in the streets anymore, it's already a step forward, a progress, you know. And the idea of the, you know, the recycling, it's also the idea of the recycling yourself, right? How you can work with your own person, but becoming a better one, right? So that's something that Anna, yeah, she's the mastermind of that. We were just witnesses.
From my point of view, there are three main questions of your movie: the question of dignity, the question of hope, and the question of optimism. Are you agree with that?
I think yes. I think those, even if sometimes seems dark and sad and surreal, I think the poetry of the film, if there is any poetry, are those values, which I think are this, you know, the spine of human condition, you know. Those are the ones that help us to move forward when even in the darkest of times, you know.
Is it American or Spanish movie? Because I'm interested and curious to know, does still exist something like Spanish touch in your filmmaking? How do you feel about that as American or Spanish filmmaker now? After
yeah, I feel I don't like nationalities, none of them. But at the end, I didn't choose where I was born, so I happened to be born there. So I consider myself a Spanish more than American, even if I live here for 10 years. And my wife, she's American, and my kids are American. But I consider myself a Spanish. You know, during 30 years, that's the culture that. I don't know. I also travel a lot, so at some point I would give up my passport. I don't like, you know, these nationalities, but it's true that
or borders or
yeah, some cultural values that I can. For me, it's very difficult to give up because I embed them since I was little. So I guess there is I think there is a more like a Latino approach, you know, which comes maybe also with a critique towards capitalism or to the American dream. You know, you start seeing the tools of the system, you know, and that makes you a little bit upset. So when you realize about those, you tend to reject America, you know, then you will feel more Spanish, right? More socialist if you want, you know. Rather than capitalist. And yeah, those are things that we thought about when we were filming. And yeah, more or less that. Yeah, but and then in legal terms, it's a Spanish movie because at the end we qualified the movie in Spain. The most of the income came from Spain. So in legal terms, it's a Spanish movie.
But I suppose the circumstances of production are different in Spain and US.
Definitely. And there is no industry, and also the documentary, even if it's getting better, is still a subgenre, you know. It's a genre that it's difficult for it to get to people. You know, people consider it less than narrative films. It's something that it's not changed, and it's gonna be, it's still, there is a lot of work to do, right? But our bet is also to try to make documentaries look like narrative films, you know. It would be also interesting, and I like also to make, you know, documentaries when it's a lot of talking heads. But I think, you know, it becomes more cinematic if they are treated with this distance to make them similar of what a narrative film is, right? And that's maybe a path to try to open it to audiences. I don't know.
What about your film career after this movie? Could we describe it as some kind of key movie in your career or not?
To be honest, it didn't change much. I continue doing, I'm preparing my next documentary and also my first narrative film as a director.
You mean at the moment of speaking?
Yeah. Finally, we got funds. It's something that I've been interested in doing, a feature narrative. But I guess, you know, there were other projects happening, and at the end, everything takes time. So I had, you know, I also like to write. I've been combining my narrative short films with my documentary short films or my documentary features. It's something that I never stopped doing besides working for other projects. So now I'm editing 2 documentaries now, one about a Native American guy that was killed by the police. So it's a very timely documentary, and that it's almost ready. And that's, I'm co-writer of that one, an editor. Then I'm finishing editing to a narrative feature that I wrote that was shot last November in New York. That one is almost done. And because these are almost done, then I'm preparing my new feature documentary and also this narrative that probably, now we got the funds. So now I know that it's gonna be able to be done, and probably will be shot, I don't know, April, May. Also with the COVID, everything is a little bit uncertain, right? That's also affecting the way we make films, to be honest.
All these movies are low budget movies or movies with big budget?
I mean, the narrative that we shot in November that I didn't direct, I only wrote it and I edited. In Spain, it would have been an okay budget, $1 million. In United States, it's a very ultra low budget, you know, like very low budget, because here they have as a standard, you know, the money in Hollywood. But in Europe, $1 million is not bad. It's, you know, like an okay budget to do it. And the documentaries are low budget. The one that I'm finishing editing about the Native American guy that was killed, it was done more or less the same way we shot The Fourth Kingdom. Going to Oklahoma, staying there, you know, a lot of people were letting us to stay in their houses because we didn't have much money. Same way, yeah. And the one to shoot in Spain, it's around more or less the same budget I told you, which is an okay budget. But yeah, that we will see. I hope that if it finally happens, it depends also on the COVID, but yeah.
Okay, Àlex, thank you so much for your conversation and all the best in your film career. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and hope that the Belgrade audiences enjoy the films, and it's been our pleasure. And also Adan, you know, also told me to send you, he could not be here, but he told me, you know, to also thank you guys and send you greetings and wish you the best, okay?
Absolutely, stay in touch, bye.
Bye, thank you.